The rain began just before sunset, the kind of cold, steady downpour that turns silk to paper and roses to mud. It fell over Ash Hollow, Oregon, a small mountain town too quiet for its own ghosts, and it did not stop. Inside the white church on Main Street, candles flickered against stained glass, their light struggling against the gray. Guests whispered in pews, their voices muffled by thunder. At the altar stood Evelyn Moore, her hands trembling beneath the lace of her veil. She looked like a ghost in borrowed satin, pale, still, and resigned. Her father had chosen the dress. Her mother had chosen the ring. And the man waiting for her, Daniel Cross, heir to a logging empire, had chosen her. Not for love, for alliance. The priest's words echoed faintly. "Do you take this man?" Evelyn's gaze flicked toward the window. Rain traced long, crooked lines down the glass. Somewhere beyond it, lightning split the sky. Her throat tightened. Her heart did not race. It barely moved. Because this wasn't her choice. It was the end of her freedom disguised as a promise. She whispered the word she didn't mean to say. Yes. The candles flickered once, as if in protest. And then, the doors burst open. The wind hit first, a rush of air so cold it snuffed half the flames. Guests gasped. The priest froze mid-sentence. In the doorway stood a man. Tall, dark, soaked from the rain. His coat hung open, his boots heavy with mud. His eyes, gray as smoke, swept the room and locked on her. No one recognized him, but Evelyn felt the world shift the instant she did, because she'd seen those eyes once before, in a dream she'd never told anyone about. And in that dream, those same eyes had looked at her like she was not made for cages. The man stepped forward, the storm curling around him as though it belonged to him. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his voice low, rough-edged, carrying more gravity than the priest's entire sermon. "But this wedding's over." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger's gaze didn't move from Evelyn, the man she was promised to, a long time ago. The church erupted. Daniel lunged forward. The priest stumbled back. Evelyn's mother rose, shouting her daughter's name, but Evelyn couldn't hear any of it. Not the storm, not the gasps, not her own pulse hammering in her chest. Only him, the stranger. He moved through the aisle like a shadow with purpose. There was no hesitation, no fear. The closer he came, the more wrong the air felt, too dense, too electric. "Evelyn," he said, stopping just a few feet away. Rain still clung to his hair, his coat, the line of his jaw. "Come with me." She blinked. "I don't even know who you are." "Yes, you do." His voice softened, like a memory. "You always have." Daniel shoved between them. "You've got about 5 seconds before I—" The man's eyes flashed silver. It wasn't a trick of light. It wasn't human. Every candle in the church guttered at once. The thunder that followed shook the windows. Daniel's next words died in his throat. He stumbled backward, staring. "What are you?" he hissed. The stranger didn't answer. He turned to Evelyn, his voice quiet but commanding. "You were born under a blood moon, weren't you?" Her breath caught. "How do you?" "Because that's how I found you." The panic came next. Guests screamed, some running, others frozen. Evelyn's mother collapsed in tears. Her father reached for a gun he didn't know how to use. Through it all, the man stood still, unbothered by chaos. Evelyn's pulse pounded in her ears. "What do you want from me?" He took a slow step forward. "Freedom. I don't belong to you." He smiled faintly. "No, but you don't belong to them either." Daniel's voice broke through the storm. "Get out now." The man looked at him, and for a heartbeat his expression changed. Not anger, not cruelty, but something primal. "I told you," he said softly. "The wedding's over." And then everything exploded into motion. Daniel charged. The stranger moved faster. One moment, he was human. The next, he wasn't. Bones shifted, shoulders widened. His skin flickered with light and shadow. His eyes burned pure silver. He caught Daniel by the throat mid-swing and hurled him across the church. Wood splintered. Gasps turned to screams. Evelyn stumbled backward, trembling, the veil slipping from her head. He turned to her again. Not a monster, not a man, but something caught between both. "Evelyn," he said, his voice layered, echoing with something old and wild. "You're not safe here." "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you were never meant for them. You were meant for us." She shook her head. "I don't understand." "You will," he said, holding out his hand. "But only if you trust me." Outside, lightning struck the steeple. The glass windows shattered inward. Rain and fire fell together. Evelyn stared at his hand, at the blood on it, the promise in it, the madness behind it. Behind her, she heard her father scream her name. Ahead of her, she saw the storm open like a gate. And for the first time in her life, she stepped toward chaos instead of safety. Her hand met his. The fire stopped falling. The world went silent. And as he pulled her into the rain, she felt her heartbeat shift, deeper, faster, wild. Somewhere inside her, something old woke up. They vanished into the storm, leaving behind the wreckage of vows never meant to be kept. And though Evelyn didn't yet know his name, she knew the truth the moment the thunder swallowed them both. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of her becoming. The forest swallowed them whole. Evelyn had never seen darkness like this, alive, breathing, whispering through the trees. The rain slowed as they ran, replaced by mist that glowed faintly under the moon. Her heart raced too fast, her lungs raw from the cold air. "Stop," she gasped, stumbling over a root. "I can't." The man caught her before she fell. His hands were warm despite the storm, impossibly strong. "Breathe," he said, his voice low and steady. "You're safe now." She looked up at him, at the wild, unreadable face, half lit by the moon. "Safe?" She laughed bitterly. "You crashed my wedding, nearly killed a man, and dragged me into the woods. How is that safe?" He studied her for a moment, then released her. "You'd rather have stayed with them?" Her jaw clenched. "At least I understood what they were." He took a slow step back, his eyes glinting silver again. "Do you?" Something in his tone, calm but dangerous, sent a shiver through her spine. She swallowed hard. "Who are you?" "My name is Lucian Vale." The name hit the air like thunder. She frowned. "I've never heard it." "You wouldn't have," he said. "Not unless you were born to remember it." Her pulse skipped. "Born to remember?" Lucian's gaze softened, though his voice didn't. "You're not who they told you were, Evelyn." She shook her head. "Don't start with riddles. I'm done being lied to." He looked past her, toward the horizon. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried the storm's scent, electricity and pine. "You were born under a red moon," he said quietly. "Your mother died the night you took your first breath." Her throat tightened. "How do you know that?" "Because she was one of us." The world tilted. Evelyn stumbled back, shaking her head. "No, my mother was sick. My father said." "Your father said what he had to," Lucian interrupted softly. "To keep you hidden. From us. From me." She stared at him, the words refusing to fit. "Hidden? Why?" "Because you're not just human, Evelyn." The wind shifted. His eyes caught the light again, gray giving way to silver. "You carry the blood of the first moon born. The alpha line." She laughed once, unsteady. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm also telling you the truth." They walked until dawn. The trees thinned, giving way to a valley blanketed in fog. A river cut through the center, and on the far side, carved into the mountain itself, was a house, stone, timber, and glass, like something older than time had built it. Lucian pushed open the heavy door and gestured for her to enter. Inside, the air was warm, faintly scented with smoke and cedar. There was a fire in the hearth, half-burned candles on the table, maps scattered across the floor. "Where are we?" she asked. "My territory." "Your territory?" Lucian gave a faint smile. "You're standing in the northern pack's home." Evelyn froze. "Pack," she repeated. "As in wolves." "As in family," he corrected. "Family doesn't destroy churches." "Family protects its own," he said simply, "even when they don't understand what they are." She looked at him, searching for any trace of irony. There was none. Only certainty. Hours passed. Evelyn sat by the window, watching mist roll over the mountains. The storm had passed, but her thoughts hadn't. Lucian moved quietly around the room, pouring water into a kettle, his presence filling the space even when he didn't speak. Finally, she said, "You keep saying I'm one of you. Prove it." He turned to her, leaning against the table. "Prove it." "Yes," she said, standing. "If you're going to destroy my life and call it destiny, at least show me why." Lucian's jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked like he might refuse. Then he nodded. "Fine." He stepped closer. "Do you feel that?" "What?" "The air." She hesitated, and then she did feel it. The weight of the room shifted. The silence grew thicker. Every breath seemed to echo. Lucian's eyes darkened. "That's the pulse of the moon. It calls to us when we're near one of our own." Evelyn swallowed hard. "I don't feel anything." "Yes," he murmured. "You do." He raised his hand and touched the inside of her wrist. The reaction was instant, a heat that rushed through her arm, up her spine, bursting like wildfire behind her ribs. Her knees buckled. She gasped. "What?" Lucian caught her, holding her upright. "Your body knows before your mind does." She looked up at him, breathless. "What did you do to me?" "Nothing," he said softly. "I just reminded you what you are." They stayed like that for a heartbeat too long, her trembling in his grip, his breath brushing her hair. The air between them changed again, no longer just charged, but dangerous. Evelyn pushed away, her voice shaking. "Why me?" Lucian's expression hardened. "Because you're the last of her bloodline." "My mother's." He nodded. "The Alpha Queen. The one who united the packs before the humans turned on us. When she fell, the balance broke. The hunters rose, and everything she built turned to ash." Evelyn stared at him, barely breathing. "And you think I can fix that?" He met her gaze. "You're not here to fix it." "Then what?" His answer came like a blade. "To take it back." That night, Evelyn dreamed of fire and silver, of wolves howling beneath a blood-red moon. She saw herself standing at the center of it all, not human, not beast, something between. And in the distance, a voice whispered her name. When she woke, the house was quiet. The fire had gone cold. Lucian was gone. She rose, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, and stepped outside. The valley glowed with dawn light. Steam rose from the river. For a moment, the world looked almost peaceful. Then she saw the footprints, dozens of them, leading from the treeline to the cabin. Not human. She spun around just as a low growl echoed through the mist. The scent hit her first, metallic, wild, raw. And then the figures emerged from the fog. Wolves, but not like the ones in her dreams. Larger, scarred, eyes burning gold instead of silver. At their center stood a man she didn't recognize, tall, dark, cruelly beautiful. "Lucian Vale's stolen bride," he said, his voice smooth as ice. The half-blood heir. Evelyn's pulse thundered. "Who are you?" He smiled, teeth too sharp to be human. "His brother." The wolves closed in. The valley filled with the sound of growls, low, guttural, echoing off the mist-wrapped cliffs. Evelyn stood frozen, the cold cutting through her dress, her pulse hammering like a trapped bird. Lucian's brother smiled, sharp and calm. He stepped out of the fog with the slow confidence of someone who didn't need to hurry to kill. "My name is Ronan Vale," he said, "the rightful alpha of this land." Evelyn swallowed hard, her voice unsteady. Lucian never mentioned a brother. Ronan tilted his head slightly. "No, he wouldn't. It's hard to explain that the throne you sit on was stolen from blood." The wolves behind him shifted, big, silent shadows, their eyes glowing gold in the mist. Evelyn's heart raced. "I don't understand what any of this has to do with me." Ronan's smile faded. "You're the last piece of the curse that broke our kind, the daughter of the human who betrayed us, and the Alpha Queen who defied the moon." Her breath caught. "My mother?" "Yes," he said softly, almost reverently. "Your mother destroyed our world when she fell in love with a man who was meant to die, a man who carried Hunter's blood. Your father." Evelyn felt the world tilt, her stomach drop. "That's not true." "Oh, it is." Ronan took another step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that still cut like glass. And Lucian, he's been waiting for you since the night she died. He swore he'd find her blood and make it his. You were never rescue, Evelyn. You were prophecy. The words hit her like a blade. She shook her head, stepping back. No. Yes, he murmured. He needs you. Not for love, but to break the curse. To restore what was stolen from our bloodline. A sudden movement in the mist. Fast, silent, predatory. Lucian. He appeared out of nowhere, a dark blur of motion, slamming into Ronan with enough force to shake the earth. They rolled through the mud, claws flashing, teeth bared, brothers locked in a fury older than words. Stay away from her. Lucian roared. Ronan's laugh was wild. You'd rather she hear it from me or from you? Evelyn's heart pounded. The wolves lunged, but Lucian turned mid-motion, his body shifting, bones stretching, muscles contorting, for splitting through torn fabric. Within seconds, the man was gone, replaced by a creature of silver and shadow. The Alpha. Ronan shifted too, darker and leaner, his fur black as midnight. They collided. The forest erupted in chaos, wolves howling, claws raking stone, trees splintering beneath their weight. Evelyn stumbled back, breathless, until the mist swallowed them. All she could hear was the violence, the snapping of bones, the growl that didn't sound like any animal she'd ever known. And then silence. Lucian staggered from the fog, bleeding, his chest rising and falling in uneven rhythm. Evelyn ran to him, catching his arm as he fell to one knee. His skin was ice-cold, his breath shallow. Lucian. He shook his head, his eyes flashing silver for a brief, pained second. You shouldn't have come outside. I didn't know. I told you to stay inside. His voice broke like thunder. She flinched, then steadied herself. Ronan said you lied to me. Lucian's eyes closed. For a moment, he looked human, tired, haunted. He doesn't lie to hurt. He lies to win. That's not an answer. He sighed, leaning heavily against her. There are things you weren't ready to know. Like what? Lucian's gaze met hers, not angry now, but unbearably sad. Like the fact that the night your mother died, it wasn't the hunters who killed her. Evelyn froze. What? It was me. The words didn't make sense at first. They hung in the air, heavy and unreal. She stepped back, shaking her head. You're lying. I wish I were. Her voice cracked. You said you loved her. I did. His voice broke on the word. I was the one who found her first. I was the one who promised to protect her. But she loved someone else, your father. And when the moon called for her to lead, she chose him instead. It made her weak. It made all of us vulnerable. His eyes shone with pain. I didn't mean to kill her. I tried to stop her from leaving. And the fire took her before I could save her. Evelyn's chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. You burned her. I lost control, he whispered. The curse twisted inside me. The same curse that lives in you now. She staggered backward. You said you came for me to save me. But you came because of her. Because of guilt. No, he said quickly. At first, yes. But not now. Tears blurred her vision. Then why now? Because when I saw you, he said, his voice trembling, I saw her strength again, but I also saw something new. You didn't just inherit her fire. You were born to master it. She shook her head, trembling. You killed my mother, Lucian. How could I ever trust you? You already did, he said quietly, when you took my hand in that church. The words broke her. She turned away, her breath coming fast. If what Ronan said is true, if I'm the key to this curse, then maybe I don't need either of you. Lucian's eyes darkened. You don't understand what will happen if you walk away. Then explain it. He hesitated, then said softly, the curse feeds on balance. 2 bloodlines, 1 human, 1 wolf. When your mother died, it began again. It's tied to you now. If you die, the wolves die. But if you live, the hunters will burn the world to stop you. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. So I'm just a weapon. You're the end of both worlds, he said, unless you choose which one to save. The sky broke open again, thunder rolling, rain slicing through the silence. Evelyn turned to him, her face pale, her voice steady despite the tremor in it. "You said I was born under a red moon. Then maybe it's time I stop running from what that means." Lucian's expression hardened. "Evelyn, I'm going to end this," she said. "Not for you. Not for them. For her." He reached for her, but she was already walking into the rain. Lightning cracked the sky open, bathing her in light. For a moment, he saw what she was becoming. Not human, not wolf, but something greater. The air pulsed around her, silver and red, the storm bending to her breath. Lucian's heart clenched. "Evelyn, if you do this alone, it'll kill you." She looked back once, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Then it'll finally be a choice that's mine." And she vanished into the forest. The rain fell harder, washing away her footprints. Lucian sank to his knees, his blood mixing with the mud. Somewhere in the distance, a howl rose, long, mournful, defiant. And though he didn't want to believe it, he knew whose voice it was. Evelyn's. The storm that followed Evelyn's awakening tore across Oregon like a living thing. The sky split open with red lightning, rivers overflowed, and the mountains trembled as if the earth itself feared what had been set free. At the heart of it all, deep in the pine forest north of Ash Hollow, Evelyn stood barefoot in the rain, her soaked wedding gown clinging to her skin like a memory she couldn't shake. The air around her burned cold. Every drop of rain that hit her skin hissed and turned to steam. Her pulse didn't beat anymore. It thundered. Lucian had called it the curse, but now it didn't feel like a curse. It felt like truth. She wasn't human. She wasn't wolf. She was both. And she was done being anyone's weapon. Lucian found her at dawn. The storm hadn't ended, but it had quieted. A restless silence that hung heavy in the mist. He stepped into the clearing, soaked and bleeding, his breath visible in the cold air. Evelyn. She didn't move. Her hair plastered to her face, eyes glowing faintly red under the rising sun. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. He took a slow step forward. "You can't control it yet. The curse is feeding off your anger. It'll tear you apart." She turned toward him, her gaze sharp, her voice calm. "Maybe that's the price." Lucian's jaw tightened. "Then let me pay it." She shook her head. "You already did. You paid it the night you killed her." He flinched like she'd struck him. "Evelyn." "No," she snapped. "You talk about balance, destiny, bloodlines. But all you've ever done is destroy everything you touch. My mother. Your brother. Me." Lucian's voice broke. "I'm trying to save you." She laughed, bitter, quiet. "You can't save something that was never yours." The air crackled. The trees bent under invisible weight. Lucian's eyes flickered silver. "You think you can end this on your own? You can't. The curse doesn't die, it transfers. If you burn, the fire just moves. Then I'll take it somewhere it can't follow." "Evelyn." "Don't," she said. "Don't say my name like you still own a piece of it." The wind howled, circling them both, and the ground began to glow faintly beneath her feet, veins of red and silver cutting through the mud like roots. The mark of the alpha bloodline. Lucian's expression changed from anger to fear. "You're calling the moon." Her eyes lifted to the sky. The clouds above churned crimson. "I'm not calling it. I'm challenging it." Lightning struck the earth behind her, igniting the trees. The rain turned to ash. Lucian moved before she could react, grabbing her arm, forcing her to look at him. "You don't know what that will do. The moon isn't a god, Evelyn. It's a bond. It owns us. If you defy it, it'll take everything." Her voice was steady. It already took everything. The ground split open. The light beneath her spread like fire. Lucian stepped closer, ignoring the heat, his skin burning under it. "Listen to me. You don't have to carry this alone. Let me take it." Evelyn's voice cracked for the first time. "And if I do, what happens to you?" He smiled weakly. "Then I'll finally have done one thing right." She hesitated, a single, trembling heartbeat, and in that pause, the fire flared higher. Lucian reached for her hand. "Please." The sky blazed. The world stopped. And Evelyn saw it then, what he meant. The bond between them wasn't just blood or prophecy. It was the same force that had killed her mother, the same force that had cursed him. It was the fire itself. She could destroy it. Or she could give it somewhere to live. Her choice. Always her choice. The light swallowed them both. For a moment, there was no storm, no sound, no air. Just her heartbeat, steady and defiant. She felt his hand in hers, the pulse of two fires colliding. He looked at her, not as alpha, not as savior, but as man. "Evelyn," he whispered, "if this is how it ends." She cut him off with a breath that felt like fire. "It's how it begins." The forest exploded in light. Every tree, every stone, every shadow burned white for a single heartbeat, and then went still. When the glow faded, the rain had stopped. The world was quiet again. Too quiet. Evelyn stood at the center of the clearing, the ground around her scorched in a perfect circle. Her gown was gone, replaced by torn fabric, skin streaked with ash and light. Lucian lay beside her, unconscious but alive. His chest rose and fell slowly, the burned scars across his skin glowing faintly like embers. She knelt, brushing his hair from his forehead, whispering, "You kept your promise." Then she looked up and saw the moon. It hung above them, no longer red, no longer angry. Silver, still, watching. And for the first time in centuries, it didn't pull. It didn't command. It simply was. The bond was broken. By morning, the wolves came, hesitant, cautious, moving like creatures who had lost their master. But when they saw her, they stopped. Not because she was alpha, because she was something more. She turned toward them, her eyes glowing faintly gold and silver at once. The union of both bloodlines. "No one owns you anymore," she said softly. "Not the moon. Not men. Not me." The pack lowered their heads, not in obedience, but in understanding. Lucian stirred behind her, his voice weak. "What did you do?" Evelyn turned to him, smiling through tears. "I chose." He blinked, confused. "Between what?" "Between power and peace," she whispered. "And I chose peace." He looked at her for a long time, the firelight catching his eyes. "Then you're stronger than any alpha I've ever known." She helped him to his feet. "No," she said softly. "I'm just free." That night, as they stood by the river's edge, the reflection of the new moon shimmered on the water. The world was quiet again, not with fear, but with calm. Lucian reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "Where will you go now?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Wherever the fire leads." He looked at her, eyes full of the kind of reverence reserved for gods and lost things. "Then let me follow." Evelyn leaned close, her breath warm against his skin. "Only if you can keep up." He laughed softly, the first real sound of peace in years. "Always." They turned toward the forest, walking into a world that no longer needed to be tamed. The storm had ended. The curse had broken. And somewhere in the distance, wolves began to howl again, not in mourning, but in rebirth. The mountains around Ash Hollow healed slowly. It would take months for the fires to fade from the ridgelines, years for the wolves to trust that the moon would never command them again. But in the weeks that followed the storm, something new began to grow. The snow came back first, soft and clean, covering the burned scars with white. Rivers thawed and ran silver again. Birds returned. The valley that had once echoed with howls of war now breathed like a living heart. And in a small cabin at the forest's edge, Evelyn and Lucian lived quietly. They didn't speak much about what had happened. Some things were too heavy for words. But the silence between them had changed, no longer tense, but tender. Lucian woke before dawn most days. He still carried the marks of what they'd done, silver scars tracing his chest, faint pulses of light under his skin. The moon might have released its control, but pieces of it still burned in both of them. He found Evelyn outside that morning, barefoot in the snow, her hair loose, her breath rising in clouds. She was looking at the sky, where the new moon hung pale and thin. "You shouldn't be out here," he murmured. "I'm not cold." He smiled faintly. "Of course you're not." Evelyn turned to him. The faint glow in her eyes was softer now, not the violent red of power, but a calm gold. "It's quieter," she said. "I can't hear it anymore." "The curse." She nodded. "It's gone." Lucian exhaled. "Good." She watched him for a moment. "What about you?" He hesitated. I still feel the bond, faintly. Not control. Not command. Just connection. To them. To you. Evelyn smiled, faint and true. Then maybe that's what it was always meant to be. They walked down to the river, where the ice had cracked into 1,000 floating mirrors. The sun climbed slowly, turning the water gold. Lucian sat on the riverbank, elbows on his knees, staring at his reflection. Do you ever wonder what it was all for? Evelyn knelt beside him. The war. The curse. The blood. The centuries of fighting for something that never belonged to us. She looked out over the water. Maybe it wasn't about belonging. Maybe it was about remembering that nothing, not power, not bloodlines, lasts forever. Only what we build after. He turned to her, voice quiet. And what will you build, Evelyn? She smiled. A home. Not for alphas. Not for wolves. Just for those who don't fit anywhere else. Lucian's eyes softened. And you want me there? I want you wherever you stop running. He reached for her hand. Then I'm already home. Weeks passed. The wolves began to gather again, not to kneel, but to listen. They came in pairs and trios, silent and watchful, unsure of what came next. Evelyn stood before them one night under the pale winter moon. Lucian beside her. You don't need an alpha anymore, she said, her voice carrying across the snow. You don't need a leader. The moon doesn't own you. The world doesn't fear you. You're free. A young wolf, small, scarred, frightened, stepped forward. And you? Evelyn smiled gently. I'm the same as you. I'm what's left when the fire goes out. The wolves lowered their heads. Not in submission, in respect. Lucian's hand brushed hers. You did it, he murmured. We did it, she said. That night, they lay by the fire in the cabin, listening to the crackle of wood and the distant sound of running water. Lucian's voice broke the silence. Do you think peace will last? Evelyn turned toward him, her face soft in the flickering light. Peace isn't something that lasts. It's something you choose. Every day. He smiled, eyes half closed. Then I choose it. Good, she whispered. Because I'm tired of burning. He reached out, his fingers tracing the faint scar that still glowed on her wrist, the mark of the bloodline that had started it all. You never needed the fire to be strong. She caught his hand and pressed it to her heart. No, she said softly. I just needed someone who saw me when I was still burning. Morning came quietly. The forest was washed clean with sunlight and thawing mist. Evelyn stepped outside while Lucian slept, the world pale and perfect. She closed her eyes and listened, not to the call of the moon, but to the heartbeat of the world. Her world. A world reborn not from dominance or blood, but from choice. And for the first time in her life, she felt no pull toward anything. Not destiny, not vengeance, not pain. Just peace. Lucian found her hours later, sitting at the edge of the woods. You're thinking again, he teased. She smiled. Always. What about? She looked up at him, the faintest light in her eyes. What comes after peace? He tilted his head. What does? Life, she said simply. He smiled, holding out his hand. Then let's live it. She took it steady, certain, and as they walked down through the valley, the sunlight filtering through the trees, the last of the snow melted into the earth. Somewhere behind them, a wolf howled, not in warning or sorrow, but in joy. The curse was gone. The moon was silent. The world was theirs. And Evelyn Moore, the plain daughter, the stolen bride, the last of the Alpha's blood, finally belonged to herself.